Yo luego tengo la persona aquí y luego la mesa, pero como hay 4 sillas, y luego el probable de solos, pues nada, pues también era un poco raro.
Yo me parezco, pero si me quiere acompañar alguien.
No, nosotros dos y tú. A lo mejor podéis tomar esto. Vale. Vale, perfecto. Pues ponemos aquí. Ah, bueno, no es otro ahí. Estamos aquí, claro. Por micrófono y micrófono. Claro, todo en inglés, ¿no? Sí.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Goethe Institute. My name is Antonia Blau and I'm very happy to say hello here in our premises in Madrid, as well as to all the participants and the public also online. Welcome. The European Gender Balance Directive will enforce new objectives for boards of directors in 2026. So indeed, it's a good moment to look at the German case and to look also at the situation in Spain. So I would like to thank Miriam Izquierdo, the president of the Foundation Women Forward, as well as Silvana Bullian for this initiative to talk about this directive and about the situation here in the Goethe Institute. The Goethe Institute is the German Cultural Institute. We're, of course, dedicated to gender balance, but we also want to be a space where people can come together to reflect about these topics. So we're very happy to host this event here tonight.
Thank you very much, Antonia. Thank you very much to the Goethe Institute to have us here and be happy to address this interesting topic, I think, not only for women, but also for men and for the corporate governance of the high decision-making positions. I think it is an initiative that should confront all of us in order of the best value creating for boards and for the corporate world. The initiative came to light thinking how Germany is developing. I have studied corporate governance in Germany, in the Wittenherdecke, and I know very well this family institute that the university has. And I think it is good to make this kind of comparisons between different European countries. Today we are going to talk about Spain, Germany, and the UK. And I'm going also to present you data of other member states so that we see how the biggest corporations are doing. But of course, also the question is what our family businesses are doing and what our medium-sized companies are doing. With this aim also, we have selected our first panel in order for them to enlighten us how is the situation in the UK and in Germany. And so thank you very much for all the public that we have here. And with that, I'm going to present you my intervention. I'm going to present you the president of FIDAR, Anya Seng, who is going to start enlightening us what the situation of the directive and the number of women in high decision-making position is, and what we can expect from the German market. Anya, please. Well, introduce yourself. Maybe tell our audience who you are and what you have done, and what FIDAR is doing, also your organization.
Yes, Miriam, thank you very, very much. I'm, very delighted to be here in this meeting. I'm just wondering how many people are in the room. Could you, let us know? Are there more like 20 or 50, or how is it looking for you?
Well, there are about 20 people here, and there are more online.
Perfect, thank you. So it's good to meet all of you here, and this evening I'm very delighted to be invited. Thank you very much for inviting us to this international meeting. My sincere thanks to the Women Forward initiative, which together with the Goethe Institute has made this cross-border exchange possible, and which is a very good opportunity to learn from each other. Well, I guess we can learn, the Germans can learn what you're doing in Spain, and we could probably all learn what they are doing in the UK. Thank you very much personally, dear Miriam, to the dedication and care with which you maintain and strengthen our connections. My name is Anja Seng. I'm the president of FIDA, Women on Boards. It's a non-profit initiative in Germany. And I'm also a professor of human resource management and director at the Institute of Public Management at the FOM University. At FIDA, we work for equal participation in leadership positions, and our goal is parity on boards and in top management. FIDA has been advocating for this for about 20 years now, and well, we are still not where we need to be. Europe is entering a crucial phase leading up to 2026 concerning gender equality, and the European Gender Balance Directive will enforce new objectives for boards, for directors. At the same time, we're living in a world where we are currently witnessing setbacks in gender equality, meaning setbacks in women's equal rights and opportunities. In today's program, it says we will discuss the real evolution of the UK and German board markets. From a perspective of FIDA, I would like to focus on developments in Germany, especially in the top management. What is the status of equal participation in leadership? How high is the share of women on supervisory and on executive boards? And what are the underlying conditions? Particularly, what is the legal framework to this? I have to admit, I can't really see if there is anything coming up from the audience, from your side. So if there are questions, please just interrupt. And then I will listen to you, but either I can can move forward in the presentation, or I can use the screen to see all of you. So first, a brief introduction to what FIDA is and what we do. FIDA is a non-profit association, independent, non-partisan, and active across Germany. We were founded in 2006 by Monika Schulz-Strelo, who might be joining in the meeting later as well. She was in your meeting 2 years ago and spoke in Spain about the situation in Germany already. Today, FIDA has about 1,500 members. We have women and men, both are welcome. But unfortunately, there are still too few men. We believe that male allyship is crucial, but it remains very difficult to attract them, to support FIDA and to support gender equality. And honestly, I would be curious to hear about your experience. Is it different in Spain? How is it to involve men in this whole discussion about equality? Probably we will have some time later to speak about this. Well, the goal of FIDA is parity in leadership positions. So what do we do to achieve this goal? We create transparency by regularly conducting studies that capture the status quo on leadership. We bring these findings into the public debate to raise public awareness. We use digital channels as well as traditional media. We work together with our members and partners, and we engage decision makers broadly, politicians, company representative leaders, and society at large. And finally, we strengthen and grow our network because mutual empowerment and support are essential to get things going. Why is our goal parity in leadership simply the logical thing to aim for? I suspect this may feel more self-evident in Spain or in other countries than it still does in Germany. But the logic, from my point of view, is quite straightforward. Half of society is female, and around half of universities degrees is earned by women. So it follows that half of top management, those with decision-making power, of course, should be women as well. But we are still far from that, as you can see from these, well, more or less broad numbers. Through our studies I spoke about, here you can see some of those, some of the studies that you can download online, but they are all in German language. I'm so sorry, but as they are just about German numbers, German companies, it is usually not used in different countries. So that was especially the experience from former years. So we don't translate it anymore. And due to AI, it's easier to translate it anyway. So through our studies, we can track developments. I will show you some data about this Women on Board Index, about the 179 companies that we analyzed. These companies, these 179 companies, they are all listed and they have a so-called full parity co-determination. I'm not really sure if you know this idea in Spain or in other countries as well. It's very German, and in German it's called vollparitätisch mitbestimmt. This concept, well, is probably not familiar, but put it simple, it means that employees, through their representatives, they have a specific form of participation in corporate governance, including seats on the supervisory board. And these companies usually have more than 2,000 employees, or well, even more, of course. So this is important when we speak about the legal framework later on to understand. So in our study, we are looking on companies that are, well, mainly that have to oblige to the legal framework. So let's have a look at the developments in supervisory boards. So I'm just talking about this one study, and we're not going into the others, too many numbers, I think. But if we take a look at the development during the last 10 years, so we're starting in 2015, we can see that in Germany, in supervisory boards, so this is where we are starting from, the amount of women was really small. So in 2015, we were still below 20% women on supervisory boards, and today it's close to 40%. So if we look to the other end. So when we take the line in the middle, it shows the average on all 179 companies. When we take the light green line, it looks just at those companies that are considered by the law. And if we take a look on the orange line, these are the companies that are not bothered by the law, so they don't, well, they're not as good as the others, as we can see. So overall, during the last 10 years, the numbers have roughly doubled, which is nice. But the chart also shows clearly growth stalled last year. So in 2025 and 2026, the growth, well, the growth stopped basically. And it's the same on executive boards. So here we see a very similar picture. Women increased from around 6% to almost 20% in the companies we analyzed. And this progress, obviously significant progress, it's very nice, but still parity is a very long way to go. So Germany has seen a positive development over the last decade, but probably it kind of stops. And the question is, why did this happen, especially during the last 10 years? And what we have is a legal framework that was set 10 years ago, so that came in place 2015. So during this time, a lot of change happened in Germany. So now we look a bit closer to this legal, to the legal basis. And I tried to, well, explain what we are doing and what we are not doing up to now, and what should be the next steps. So what is this legal framework, the legal basis? First of all, our German constitution guarantees equality between women and men. That's very nice. And it assigns the state responsibility to promote it. So in the German constitution, we call it Grundgesetz. So it's, well, I didn't really know how to translate it, so I just kept the German name. Secondly, there is the German Act on the Equal Participation of Women and Men in Leadership Positions. We call it FUPOC. So that's the short version, if you would know the German word, but it's just too long and not understandable in a different language. So it came in place in 2015. It sets clear roles for participation in top bodies, and it introduced 3 different levels, let's say. It has a 30% gender quota for supervisory boards. It has a minimum participation requirement for executive boards. We call it Mindestbeteiligungsgebot, again, very German. And there is an obligation to set and to publish targets for the top management levels, for supervisory boards, for the executive board, and the first and second level underneath the executive board. So far, so good. Looks very good. And this was a very important step, I think, as we can see from the figures we saw before. Yet the law applies just to very, very few companies. Currently, only around 100 companies have to cover this gender quota on supervisory boards. And only about 60 companies have to cover the minimum participation requirements for executive boards. So it will take a very long time until all thousands others of companies might change. So gender equality in the top management won't come to be normal day-to-day business, as long as the law is just applied to so less companies. So if we look at the target figures, the target setting requirements, they are applied to almost 2,000 companies, which is much better. But in practice, it doesn't work as well. So enforcement is still weak. There are no consistent sanctions if companies fail to provide meaningful data or miss their targets. The law says there can be sanctions, but nobody puts them in place. So it's kind of a political and a legal thing that has to happen in the next step. So this part of the law is not sufficient as well. In parallel, we see developments in Europe. We have the European Gender Balance Directive, and it will take effect this summer, as you said in the beginning. It sets more ambitious expectations than German law does up to now. It's aiming for 40% women and 40% men on supervisory boards in companies with more than 250 employees. So very good framework. And Germany agreed to this EU directive in 2022, but under one condition. And that condition is the so-called opt-out clause. And we used it. It means that EU rules won't apply in Germany because we have already our FUPOC, we have a law, even though the regulations are less than the European ones are. So from FIDA's perspective, this is highly regrettable. The German standard is lower, while other European countries will now move forward. Germany risks competitive advantages, and unfortunately, this doesn't seem to bother relevant stakeholders in German companies, and not really German politicians as well. So 10 years after introducing our FUPOC, our equal participation law, the picture is quite clear. Progress is too slow, parity is still far away, and most progress only happens in companies where law applies. Just very few companies are covered, and Germany risks falling behind other European countries. And that is why FIDA calls for fully implementing and further developing the existing legal framework and extend the basic coverage. So in addition to what I showed in the beginning, what FIDA is doing, we are working on this political level quite hard. So we approach politicians and ask for extending the existing law. We have a Positionspapier, I don't really know how to translate it. So we have we ask for for a lot of changes or some changes in the German law. We want to extend the supervisory board quota to more companies, not only to 100, but also to these 2,000. We want to turn the minimum participation requirements on executive boards into a binding quota and apply it for more companies as well. Just an example, you all know Volkswagen. They have an executive board with 10 people, and this minimum participation requirement says there has to be one woman. Well, they have one woman out of 10. So a quota of 30% or even 40%, as Europe is aiming for, would be much better. So it says that there has to be at least 3 or 4 women on this board. But now it's just one, and that's fine concerning the German law. And we ask to consistently enforce sanctions where companies do not meet their published targets. So on this third part of the law, we are also asking for change. But of course, beyond the law, companies must change culture as well. Politics set the framework, very important, but important especially in Germany, because sometimes I think as long as there's no law, companies don't act. But well, I keep asking companies, it could be a good opportunity to act before more law is in place. Well, so they have to do something, the companies, the management, because just simply meeting a quota doesn't automatically change reality. What we need is cultural change inside organizations as well as society, of course, because in society it's not easy as well. This includes recruitment practices, leadership pipelines, and design of incentives within companies. The role of executive search firms is particularly important, I think, especially in appointment processes at the top, so on executive boards as well as on supervisory boards. And that's why I'm very much looking forward to the next contributions and to the exchange afterwards, what we hear from these executive search representatives. So from my point of view, I would say thank you very much. And I hope, I'm looking forward to some further exchange. If there are any questions, we could go through them already.
I don't know if anybody wants to make a question to Monica, or otherwise we carry on with the program.
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, Anja.
Very welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Monica, for enlightening us how Germany is doing with this problematic. And I was astonished to listen that companies are need an incentive in order to promote more women. This is really something that we have to consider. That it is, we're talking about gender equality all the time, but still we see that this is not something natural for corporations and for men, and eventually for some women eventually also. Yeah. So this is the sad story, no? The sad part of the story. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much, Vidar. Thank you very much, Anja and Monica, for being here with us. So then maybe I'm going to tell you how Spanish is doing, and also how recruitment practices are. I'm going to explain you, well, how the context is, but also considering that we have just finished a new research with University Rey Juan Carlos. We have been involved 3 researchers, 2 from University Rey Juan Carlos and myself. And I'm going to tell you about the results of this research. I don't know if I can pass the slides. Yeah? Yeah. ¿Cómo? Ahora. Well, the research is about board diversity and recruitment practices as drivers for women advantage. Then I'm going to tell you about Spanish boards. How has been the story? What is the level of feminization of Spanish board? But what has been the precedent story along these years, particularly in IBEX 35, but also in other listed companies. And then I will also explain you what is the situation in other European countries and in the UK. UK published the British leadership on the 24th of February. So we have just new data from the situation in the UK now. So in this research, we have used all possible available data from the stock exchange. We have also briefly seen what Atrevia, which is a public company in Spain, a communication company, and the leadership review, as I was mentioning, and our research. So the name of the research is Board Diversity and Recruitment Practices as Drivers for the Advancement. And you have the authors, Mónica Segovia and Rosa Santero, which are the Catedrática of Gender Equality of University Rey Juan Carlos. I think I went too far. No? Okay. So the objective was to examine the impact of gender quota regulations on female representation in supervisory boards in IBEX 35. Why? Because we wanted to see what are the steady companies that have been part of the IBEX 35 from 2017 until 2025, and study how this development has done and what the performance of the companies that have been member of this index along all these years. So it's a longitudinal study. And we have used a quantitative analysis, this longitudinal analysis, and also qualitative. We have also looked at selection practices and compliance mechanisms of about 25 companies that have been part of the IBEX 35 between these years, 2017 to 24. So the questions that we want to address and that we can now eventually give a reply to is how has gender quota regulation impacted the increase of women in supervisory boards? And if there are differences in different, according to the sectors, and if listed companies comply better with gender diversity regulations than not listed companies, and IBEX 35 to other listed companies. So the goal is to analyze this impact of the quotas and the impact of the recruitment methods. We have used two corporate theories, which is the institutional one that examines social norms, culture, legal frameworks, influence, and organizational behavior, particularly as regards gender equality. And well, we have studied in particular how companies behave when they have quotas versus to the ones that don't feel the pressure of gender quotas. And then the agency theory is a corporate theory which analyzes the role of the internal structure in corporations. And then we have seen how the agency conflicts and power dynamics with organization limit women advancements in general. So, well, I have explained you already the quantitative and the qualitative analysis, and well, the variables are the percentage of women on boards, the number of women in executive positions, and what we have called level 1, 2, and 3 of recruitment practices that we are going to tell you. So level 1 is high transparency, and it is used by, which means that the companies having the transparency use external recruitment firms like the ones we are going to have in the next panels, and very defined criteria as why are they selecting board members. Level 2 is moderate transparency, where they have shared responsibility between the HR department and the board, and they are not using executive, so professional recruitment firms. And level 3 is low transparency, where they do an internal selection with informal processes, with very limited diversity goals, and very opaque recruitment sources. And so we have also the compliance levels. Level 1, we have on average, so the 35 IBEX company having level 1 recruitment practices show on average 45.2 women on boards. The companies of level 2, they have only 25% women on boards. And in level 3, they are about 15%, and we still have, as you can see, about 4 companies that have no women on boards still. So we have seen that because of the impact of quotas, of, well, soft quotas, as you know, because they come not from the legislative, from a law, but from the pressure of the CNMV. We just have a law which entered into force from last June. Before, what we had is these soft quotas, which is stemming from the CNMV in Spain. But boards have increased from 23 in 2017 to 42 in 2024. So even this soft pressure had an impact. However, and we can see also this impact of this gender quota, in executive role, the percentage has moved from 6% to 7% along these years. So we see that the impact of the gender quota is interesting somehow. The compliance with regulation. So companies having this transparent selection have normally diversity objectives and comply better with the regulations. However, symbolic policies, so gender washing, just to say that they comply, we have seen in the foundation listed companies that mention in their corporate governance report that they are very good at compliance with gender equality, don't even have an equality plan, which is also compulsory. They have like four sheets of gender equality plan, which means that they don't really believe in it, no? That shows persistent structural barriers within the corporations that we have addressed also in our research extensively, which means that corporations don't really believe in gender equality, despite the fact that we have a very good numbers in listed companies because of the quotas. So at the end, the impact of quotas is good as long as the companies really select, taking into account also diversity between the women. And we are going to come to this point to end with these conclusions. So we see that there are persistence of barriers, despite the progress and the fact that there are more women on boards. We see that we don't have the number in executive positions is varying very, very slowly, also as in Germany. Although we are higher, we are more advanced in boards, they are not more advanced in executive positions and in executive positions within the boards. And well, if we want to do some policy recommendations, we have to, well, professionalize recruitment practices to promote gender equality and establish goals, measurable goals, and monitor progress regularly. These are the main conclusions. If we go to the numbers, what can we see? Now we have in listed companies overall, well, nearly 37%. So if the Spanish law has a threshold of 40%, we are nearly there. And we also comply with the directive which will enter into force in June, which is having a threshold of 30%. However, saying or asking that 40% of these 30% should be independent members. That is important because most of the women are independent members on the board. They are not executives. So this is one of the main differences. We see that 66 out of the 119 companies fulfill the legal requirements of this 40%. You have the companies that better comply are Bakinter, Redeia, Prisa, Fluidra. And for companies with no women on boards are Berkeley Energia, which is nearly, they have also economical problems, maybe because of that. You have also Pescanova, Soltec, and Urbas Group. Well, in this IBEX 35, we have a total of 183 women, which is more or less now about 43%. Top sectors are consumer services, financial services, technology, and communications. Some of them may know that we did a research last year in the UK market because we couldn't find data in Spain, using gender biases in the publications of, that's why we didn't have data in the Spanish market, on the publications of executive positions. And we could use the financial, the Financial Times and The Economist to track that. And we saw that there are gender bias and that many women don't apply to these positions because they think that they are only looking for men. However, we saw that there were no differences. So for more agentic sectors like technology, transport, and others, compared to more communal sectors like communications, there was not a correlation. It is not that in the most communal are associated to women traits. So we like to see in women that they are good in nature, that they put a lot of effort in communications, and that they care for the team. So what we could see that they are the prototype of what women acting, whereas men active is more in logistics, in CFOs, COOs, but we didn't find that the most communal sectors were more diversity than in the least agentic sectors. And the reason is that the companies which have the best results are the ones who have gone through a cultural transformation, that really do believe in the gender equality, in diverse teams for value creating. So we see here the most underrepresented are agentic like retail, industry and construction, but not really, we cannot really correlate that. We saw last year in the research that we did at the foundation. We saw that there are many women holding multiple Spanish boards, so like more or less 20%, 25%, depending of if you look at IBEX or other listed companies. And so we ask ourselves in the foundation, what is the contribution of female leadership to the board's dynamic? And we study that also in light of the group thinking theory. Group thinking, which is the fact of not having enough discussions within the board which allow for a real profound study of alternative course of actions when the board has to face a problem. And therefore, we think that more effort should be put to the fact of looking for diversity from the point of view of corporate governance and a good dynamic in the board. And then we ask ourselves if there is a business case for gender diversity in boards. And in fact, we found that there is a case of gender diversity in boards, that companies in general having more diverse team outperform better also financially and also from an organizational point of view. However, we have also seen that in order to create really value and overcome group thinking, we should consider that the selection of women have to be from different sources, not from the same elite. It should be done through professional search processes done by professionals of recruitment and not by who do we know in the board, who are our friends. Why? Because it is clear that if you have a friend in the board and is asking you to join this board, you will have a conflict when you have to not to agree in any case that you have to take it into consideration the analysis of a problem, because you owe this person something and you don't know and you don't want these persons to see you as somebody confronting. Therefore, professional search processes are needed. And then there should be also a minimum number of women. Why? Because we see that if there is only one woman or two women in a board, less than 30%, depending, of course, how big the board is, women don't feel at ease pointing out problems or, well, approaching the way the different ways they see to approach communications or the analysis of a problem, if they feel that they are really in an isolation position. We studied that, well, the University of Pisa did a very interesting study in Italy with the outcome that the corporate governance improved a lot in Italy when they address all these three questions all these three conclusions that I have mentioned. At the beginning, so when they studied, the first board and the first of the 2000, the whole countries in Europe started to measure how many women were in listed companies. In Italy, there were very, very few women, even less in Spain. In Spain, we started with 6% in 2006. And they were, of course, the daughters of people or they were family related, even in listed companies. But in Italy, it was even worse because they were even more mixed with the elite, the financial and political elite. So the case named these women Berlusconi women because they were really women in the power. And they were also like 4 or 5%. Then with the pressure of the media, of women in the media, this number progressed, but they were only looking for women from certain universities, from certain elite, and they call them the Bocconi women. Most of them were from Bocconi. And then the law was passed, the law of gender equality in boards in the year 2013, and they had to look for more than 400 women. And of course, the women that we know, our friends, were not enough, so that they could not be this level 3 recruitment, who do we know? And they had to be more professional. And so they had to look for entrepreneurs and academics and other sources of talent pool. And then that outcome as more professionals, boards, better dynamics, and much better corporate governance in Italian boards. What is the situation of women in the UK? Okay, maybe Mary will tell you more about that, but well, I just wanted to point some numbers. Here it is surprising that you see that in FTSE 240, they have the threshold is lower than in FTSE 350, because normally, and in FTSE 100, you see that the biggest the company are, the more diversity they have. But you see that in the UK, this rule is, well, it's nearly the same, but this is still some difference. And for me, the good news, I don't know, Mary can tell you more about that when in the round table. But for me, the interesting thing is that 30.1% are voluntary companies that are private companies, so not listed, family businesses in general, that already have a 30% diversity on their boards, which is, I think, is a very good number. And I really think that this is a good news for the UK. I think they are doing better. And well, here you just have here the European comparison, where you can see that, of course, France and Norway are leading, and then you have the UK. But this, I want you to take into consideration the second column, because we cannot just say this like this. I mean, these numbers are not comparable. We have indexes with 25 companies, 40 companies, 35 companies, but in the UK, we have 350 companies. So really the diversity is in the UK. I mean, the fact that Germany is complying with the DAX with 40 company, or Spain is complying with IBEX 35 with 35 company, is something which is, well, it's not bad. We are not going to complain about it, but it's not really something to be so happy to celebrate we are there. Whereas it seems that the UK, well, is doing better. So this is our research, and this is what I wanted to tell you about the situation in Spain. No, here.
I think we lost you.
Yeah. Just a second, we would hand over the microphone to the public because we have a question here.
Thank you, Miriam. I just wanted to ask if you see any kind of correlation between the share of women on boards in the different companies with the policies. Let's say the women in general in the executive positions in that companies, or the plans in the companies. Are we pushing from the boards the companies in order to increase equality, or we should do better?
Well, actually, this was the reason under the first gender quota law that Norway issued in year 2008. They only envisaged boards because they thought that would push executive committees. But the fact, it didn't happen. What I see that pushes this number is the cultural transformations of organization. Companies that do that and really believe in that and really believe in the value creation of diversity, the board pushes. They regularly measure, and they measure also, they combine it with the performance of the company. And 90% of the cases is very aligned. The more diverse the company is, the better it does in any kind of key indicators that you may consider about the performance of the company. So the ones of the level, this is why we use here the recruitment level. You see the recruitment level, the 4 companies that don't have any woman in board, they're doing very bad. Pescanova, Berkeley, Energia, the numbers are bad. In that small analysis, I mean, there are a lot of papers in the research, if you are interested by this topic, that, I mean, you cannot say it straightforward. You have to see different indicators, but in general, companies with more diversity are doing better also economically and financially, which is not the same.
Thank you, Miriam. Congratulations for the research. I think it's quite, impressive, the results. And I have the perception, and I, of course, might be wrong, that companies are looking more to put a check in the box than really go through a transformation and really looking for equality. And actually, for example, in Germany, if we saw the numbers in the last years, they are flat. Why? Because we reached the target, we have a check in the box, so let it be, right? That's an indicator from my perspective. And another one is, for example, in Spain, majority of women are independent board members, but they are not really executive. Plus, as you also mentioned, there are a few women that are in many boards, but it's difficult for other women to reach those boards. So, you know, for me, it's kind of like a vicious circle in a way. So what could be done to kind of really, you know, get women on board, because we believe that it's better and that you know, diversity is good, and not to put a check in the box just to go ahead and really, you know, it's just a formality, but not something we really believe in as a corporate, you know, as a corporation. Thank you, Miriam.
Well, actually, when I founded the foundation, I thought to do something that I had not been able to achieve, which is to have more the women united versus this objective, which is not the case. In Spain, as you know, there are hundreds of women associations doing different things, and nobody is adding the together. Unlike FIDAR in Germany, this is the only one dealing with this topic, and they're all there. This is not happening in Spain, and will never happen. Unlike, I mean, I don't know, but we are so. On the other hand, ESG should have pushed for that, but apparently ESG is more for compliance things and environmental things. At the end, the gender equality has been there in the middle. We had France and the UK and the United States pushing for that with the DIE policies, DIE policies. But now the Americans are not there, and we are not waiting for them anymore. So we are now only have kind of the Scandinavian markets, France, but France is already there. France should maybe probably focus more on the, family violence, which are very, very much worse than in Spain. When in Spain we say that we have, of course, any number is a big number, even if they are 50 or 60. But in France, the numbers are 5-6 times more. But they don't have a problem with this anymore, even in executive positions and in the management committees anymore, because they have a quota also there. Because in France, the member of the parliament who passed the law in France learned from Norway and say, well, I'm going to put the quota in both positions, so it's not going to happen to us what Norway was not able to fix. Another thing that we could do is to look on recruitment practices, as I have said. We just have to see that the talent pool of the recruitees come from different sources, not from the same universities, from the same course, from the same group of friends, which is happening pretty much in Spain. In IBEX 35, maybe less, but still, they are also using headhunters in order to whiten their choices. And we know that. But I mean, the headhunters know much more, so maybe they can tell us if it is true what we see from the research and from our informal networks.
Hello. I also had one question. Miriam, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I think, if I remember correctly, there was the 50 biggest private companies that have no legal obligation to do so. They still have 30% women executives, if I remember correctly. In the UK, exactly, in the UK. So what can be done for these numbers to improve if there is no law asking for it or demanding it. What can be done for these numbers to be even better in the UK without the compulsion from the law in this case?
Well, I think Mary can tell more about the UK, but what I can tell you could be also some pressure from consumers for companies having more diversity and more studies, but more dissemination of the outcomes of these studies and the correlation between performance and diversity. And as I said, looking that diversity is also coming from different sources of talent pool and not from the same talent pool that everybody thinks the same. I mean, we used to have in IBS 35 a lot of boards from group of friends. I mean, Telefonica was like that in the times of Alerta. There were the friends from El Pilar, from the school. And that is a fact. The biggest company nearly, they had a board out of his friends, and they were very happy. And the case of Pescanova, that we have, everybody is talking about eventually Abengoa, the scandal of Abengoa and Banco Popular. But the case of Pescanova was amazing. I mean, there was this board didn't have any corporate governance at all. Of course, they were inventing even companies and putting them in the balance sheet so that but what did these board members? They never asked a question. They were all very happy. Yes, the board 2 hours. Okay, finish. Everything is good. You are president. You are the greatest in the world, and let's go for lunch. So the corporate governance is inexistent.
Yes, that's probably a very good point of aspect that we have to talk about corporate governance as well. The quota or legal framework is just a first step. So the quota is kind of reinforcement for the companies, so they have to change. But as soon as they reach the numbers, as we can see it in Germany now, there has to be some cultural change inside the companies. And this is nothing that can happen from outside. So no political changes can affect the culture within the company. So the CEO and the executive board, as well as the supervisory board, they have responsibility to accelerate the change. If they can always set targets internally, either if there is a law or if not, they can set targets as they do it on revenue as well. So every company has targets for revenues, but no one on equality. So they can decide to do this. They can put structures in place to work against biases. As you said earlier, the similarity bias is definitely a problem. So we can change probably recruitment processes, learning and development processes, talent pipelines. So there are a lot of structural things that can be put in place, but it has to be the turn from the top. So it has to be part of the company culture. It has to be part of the strategy as well, so that changes are really put in place. As long as the top management doesn't want this change, it won't happen. That's at least our experience. So that's why we from FIDA try to work with the political side on the one hand, but with companies, with top management, with leaders on the other side, so that we can make cultural change really happen. It's a long way to go. Monica, you have something about this as well, I guess.
Yeah, I'm looking at it from a different angle right now, or an additional angle, to put it like that, because I think that it's very important to discuss what kind of skills and competencies are needed in boards. And a lot of companies already started that, but I have to say more the bigger ones. And you can even see publishing papers where you see all the people and then the skills in the board. And I'm also working at a trend company right now. So I'm not only looking at where are we today, but what do we need in 5 years' time, and what are the competencies needed in a board in the future. And I think that's an additional discussion which might help us, because it's not only about understanding balance sheets and being in the audit committee, because we are living in a time that is changing significantly. Like, you have to have AI competencies, you have to know how it works, you have to know how the planet is evolving. So a lot of things which I believe you have to look at for the future, and that might be an opportunity as well, because it gets away from, and I was triggered by this, friends and families thing, but to what do we need? What kind of competencies and skills? And that might help us as well in this whole female discussion, is my point of view.
Yeah. Okay, and advancing the program with our first panel. Yeah, you are all online. Yeah, okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so we have a very interesting panel, I think. We are going to learn a lot from our headhunters here, what are their experience and how they are seeing it, these practices in the German and in the UK market. So we have today Martin Beck, which is the managing director of Cattenom Tag, holds a degree in economics from Potsdam and a master of feature management from the UAB in Barcelona. He's living in Barcelona and commuting to the south of Germany, if I remember correct. And is specialized in international leadership and board level appointments. He's the managing director of Germany in Cattenom, and he advises companies and boards across the DACH on succession planning, cross-border governance profiles, and diversity-driven mandates. Then we have Elias Bothan, which is online. He's the regional managing director DACH at Morgan Phillips Executive Search, who is overseeing Germany and Switzerland. And he also serves as the global practice head in life sciences, shaping the group's strategy and the client strategy in this sector. Elias is in Morgan Phillips since year 2014, and holds an MBA on marketing and statistics from Paris and Mainz. And his work focuses on optimizing recruitment processes and improving operational efficiency. Then we have our third member is Arne Adrian, is managing director of Paulik Executive, an international and active executive search firm. Has over 20 years of experience and has placed numerous board, supervisory boards, and advisory board members, particularly within medium-sized companies, family-owned businesses across various industries. He focuses on C-level appointments, international governance mandates, and strategic succession. He advises organizing and building diverse and future-ready supervisory boards and supports executives in positioning themselves for international mandates. So maybe we can then enlighten us how we can pursue more diversity in German boards. He is also the chairman of the supervisory board of ScanUp AG, specializing in management assessment and leadership diagnosis. And then we have Mary MacLeod, who is going to talk us about the UK boards. Mary is the chair of the Global Board and CEO practice at August Leadership, advising on board appointments, including succession planning, board effectiveness, leadership assessment, and diversity across sectors. He was senior client partner at Conferri and the board and CEO practice on the UK leadership team. She began her career in technology and transformation and human performance consultant at Accenture in the UK, Luxembourg, and Frankfurt, and was CEO of Global Operation ABN AMRO Investment Bank. And very interesting thing, she was also a former member of the UK Parliament, and he's chair of the government's Women's Business Council, representing the UK in the G20 Empower Alliance for Women's Leadership, and he's also on the advisory board of the FTSE Women Leaders. So I think we have an excellent panel in order to analyze today, well, how the markets are doing and what can we do to improve value creating in boards and more diversity as a consequence or the opposite. Okay, so maybe I will try to keep it shorter because we are, well, the time is pushing. So we are going to start with Martin and Arne. From that point of view, what has changed the most in Germany bond market over the last 12 months? And what do you expect for the year 2027? Martin.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for the invite. Hi, also Arne, nice to meet you, and the rest of the panel. Thank you also Anja and Monica for your interventions. I would like to highlight two aspects. So one is, of course, I see a clear rise in Germany, mainly in scrutiny and formalization. So of course, there has been a intense regulatory pressure. And I think this is somehow also an opportunity because it leads us to more professionalization in line what Monica also said before. And I even see in family-owned companies in Germany a slight change here. I think this is positive. I see nomination committees working in a much more structured way. So it is less relationship based. This is what you mentioned, right? Also in Spain in that case, but I think it's less relationship based and more process driven. And of course, then the starting point is exactly what you said, Monica. The starting point is the competency matrix. So it's a clear analysis of what is missing, and then we go for it. And of course, then in Germany, okay, there is then strong scrutiny. There is the checks are done very, very strictly, of course, because you need to defend in the end your decisions. They must be explainable in front of the investors. Sometimes, if it goes very badly, then very bad, and also in front of the public view. And of course, it must also be legal. And the second aspect is, I mean, we need to see, I think, a little bit the situation in Germany. I mean, the situation in Germany is quite horrible, I would say. We have economical situation which is very bad. We have the US trade policies. I mean, this is creating a big issue here. The sort of geopolitical problems we have. We have them also since Saturday again in a complete new, more or less new region. We have the Chinese competition as well in Germany. We have in Germany also lack of infrastructure, lack of digital structure. So we have so many problems in Germany. No, but I think it's true. And Germans, what are doing Germans? I mean, they where's my process? They're looking for the process, and they even slow down with the speed. But what I want to say is that let's say, and at the same time, I must add, of course, we have AI is knocking on the door, or maybe it's even smashing the doors, right? And in this context, what is happening? I think it is that the pace of change that's a big challenge. That's a big issue, and I think it's increasingly difficult to do the job in a supervisory board. And again, I think you said it, Monica. I mean, what in the past, let's say, was enough to be in a cyber supervisory board, it's not enough anymore, and that's the problem. And in that sense, I would even say that there should be a shift in what is the role. I mean, of course, there's a limitation always. The supervisory board is the supervisory board, and we have a dual system. In since you all know in Germany, you cannot step into things which is not your work, right? But I think it is not enough to review the last 3 months. Look at the numbers, the report, and then you go for lunch, right? I think it's important to be a sparring partner for AI, sparring partner for risk management and for strategy. So I think much more is expected nowadays from the supervisory board.
Size of companies. Arne.
Sorry, I lost you. Yeah, again, also thank you from my side for the invitation and congrats to Martin. I think you already have covered all potential answers to this question. But let me try to pick some thoughts from my side as well. So I think that, of course, the current situation in Germany, especially with a view on the economic, is difficult. I would not be that negative like Martin is, but I think that a lot of challenges are waiting ahead of us, and this also includes the question how to get a good combination in the board with regards to all the challenges and the demands of the evolving and changing markets with regards to AI and so on and so on. So I think that what I see in the last, let me say, probably 2 years, is that there's a more sensitive way to pick, to choose the right people to the board. No longer these old friend relationship topic anymore, because the companies know it's getting more serious. We need really to bring the best people at the table, also on the non-executive board, of course, in the executive board as well, probably more important than on the non-executive board. And of course, competencies like managing these evolving times, these high-speed evolution that we see in technology, the multinational trade politics issues that you have, especially with regards to the US and China, that needs different answers. But it also depends on the size of the companies. So therefore, I would say I see a progress in a positive way. I see less friendship dealings, and the way we already have discussed. And I still see, from the German perspective, a more international board demand, so that the shortlists are becoming more and more international. But not that easy to put this all together, because we have a different system here in Germany. So therefore, the international candidates also must be prepared how to work in a board role here in Germany. So yeah, I think that's my short answer.
Different from other European countries right now into selecting international board members. What do you think that candidates consistently underestimate or neglect when approaching a UK board?
Well, thank you for the invite. Great to be here with you all. Of course we are. We're living in a world that's incredibly disruptive, and I won't go back to what the others have just said. But we're living in a state of unrest, and sometimes in those moments, organizations look inwards and try and play safe, but actually what is needed for them is to take a bit more of a risk by looking beyond our own geographic boundaries, and that is where, in terms of what you can bring to a board, becomes the key thing. There's transferable skills in every single organization and sector and geography, and it's just bringing that to the fore in terms of the value that you can add because of the experience that you have. In the UK, we're very positive about getting international skills and experience onto boards, and it's like that, I think, relatively so generally globally. But it's all about what you bring, and I think what organizations are looking at is where are they right now, how do they deal with that fast pace of change, how do they deal with that uncertainty, and if you can show that you have done transformation, you've done innovation, you've done growth, you understand technology and AI, you may not be an expert, but you understand the strategic impact of it, then that will make a difference. So it's all about showing the relevance to that particular organization and market that you're in, and showing that you've got that experience to deal with the challenges that they specifically have. And then there's a real open conversation, but I get asked all the time for international input and experience on a board, because it's seen as very beneficial. And I think, you know, in countries like Germany, you've got a good reputation for sort of quality and detail and the sectors where you're really strong. So there's, you know, economic growth isn't great anywhere when you look around, maybe a bit in the US, but that might change given the recent things that are happening in Iran. So it really makes a difference to just keep looking at what can be added. I don't know if you want me to say anything about the UK and the diversity element just now, but I'll do it really quickly. You saw the stats. The UK is not perfect. We've done really well on boards, but where we're still not doing well enough is chairs of boards. We're not doing well enough on chief executives. So that pipeline of talent getting up through an organization, and FDs, financial directors, CFOs could be better. But what we did to move the dial, and when I went into Parliament first, I looked at all the data and realized that was in 2011, we were on about 9% women on boards. And we decided to go down a voluntary approach rather than quotas. But we did it through a series of initiatives where it was a collaboration between ministers in government and between business itself. So it was government initiated, but business led. And in essence, they put top leadership to drive the change and to do the reviews and to make it happen. And then the government minister would turn out every year the data and the analysis of what was happening. And we would put the most senior female executive on it, and a man too, because it was really important we engaged the men to help drive the change. And then it was about data, targets, measuring it, naming and shaming worked quite well in terms of competition. And then just consistency of the detail and not giving up on it. So we just kept, it's a journey, and we kept being ambitious with what those targets are. And so, yeah, we've got already to 43% on boards and 37% in leadership. But the cohort we look at is 400 companies. So it's 350, FTSE 350 and 50 biggest private. So that is 26,000 appointments if you count the board roles and the executive roles. So a huge number of leadership roles within that. But I guess there was just this real belief, and I sort of pushed government on it, that just what we heard earlier, is really important to have diversity in your teams, across an organisation at every level, and also on boards. Will make better decisions, and it helps economic growth. So that was part of the process, and then we just pushed to create a cross-ministerial task force on it, and created charters for women in different sectors, like in finance and financial services, where there was fewer women. And again, annually we updated the data and presented it with the minister and business leaders to show the progress that was being made. So it's work in progress.
Thank you very much, Mary. Well, I mean, the differences are amazing between the UK and the rest of the continent, particularly except in France, maybe. Particularly if you see that is a voluntary approach. without quotas. Elias, to keep it simple, what are your 3 non-negotiable international board candidates in Germany in 2022 6 should have? And is it different to Switzerland?
Yeah. Also from my side, first of all, thank you for being with you and nice to meet all of you. I try to keep it sharp to catch up a bit with the timing. If I break it down to 3 non-negotiables for Germany, so first would be you need to walk in with real governance. German boards, they expect directors who can immediately contribute in audit, risk, or REMCO. So committee readiness is not a nice to have, it's probably the entry ticket. Second, you need to manage serious or have serious P&L experience. German still values leaders who have actually run a large business, multi-billions, operational, international. If you haven't owned results, it's hard to be credible in a, for example, DAX boardroom. And third, I would say you need to have a track record in transformation under complexity. Means, for example, digital change, restructuring, regulated environments, or as we have now globally, geopolitical uncertainty. So German boards wants people with real experience and not only theoretical knowledge. And if I look to Switzerland, I would say same fundamentals, but different emphasis. They probably, if we look on, for example, premium on cross-border regulatory sophistication. In Switzerland, we have a lot of pharma, medtech, financial services, or luxury companies. And for example, on pharma, if you have navigated with authorities like in the US with FDA or in Europe with the EMA, you're immediately more relevant. And in Switzerland, Swiss push harder on digital and innovation oversight. So they want directors who really understand technology, AI, or cyber. It's not a buzzword, it's more like a practical exposure. And to summarize it between the both countries, and maybe Monika Schulze, who is with us, can correct me later, as she's experienced with board positions in both countries. I would say Germany wants committee-ready governance, large-scale P&L, and hard transformation experience, where in Switzerland they share probably the same as well, but adds a stronger, let's call it, global lens on and a sharper expectation on digital and regulatory sophistication.
Elias, for this clear, very clear answer. Okay, I'm going to skip one block because, as you say, we are running out of time. So from the deal breakers you have mentioned and others like language independence, conflicts, availability, what are the most common deal breakers in German listed board processes? Independence, conflicts, availability, reputation, checks, cultural fit? Arne, what gets screened or considered more regularly than candidates expected? Maybe you have mentioned already some, but what are your views on that?
I think it depends a bit on the size of the company. So I'm doing a lot of business for family-owned, medium-sized, so-called German Mittelstands companies. So I think this might differ a bit from blue chips or DAX or whatsoever. But I think the most deal breakers are not about the competence. I think that most common issue is independence, for example, past advisory mandates or close industry lies, of course. But availability also is very important and often underestimated, in my view, is also the question of multiple committees, transformation topics are involved. But, and I think this is missing for at least from my perception today, is the cultural fit, especially for family-owned companies. Transformation only can be run by people, and it's for people, and it's a cultural change that you're doing, even if you're changing your business model or have a cost cutting whatsoever in front of you. So therefore, I think that the cultural fit for me is most important. All other topics, of course, are even very important. But when it comes to the question how to to advise the executive board, how to support the executive board, how to also be in charge of creating a future-oriented culture in the organization with the people and for the people, then it's all about culture. And you know, the stupid sentence, all culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's, I think, still true. And therefore, especially in family-owned companies and medium-sized German Mittelstands companies, it's very important.
Mhm. Martin, if you had to pick one, what opens door fastest? P&L, accounts, governance, transformation, risk, IA?
I think it's great to have operational success and governance knowledge, of course. But I think what really makes a difference is driving change. And I think it definitely I would pick transformation and risk. Yeah, because it really makes a difference if you're able to contact in this with this complexity change, and if you're able to transform organizations, digital transformations. I think that this makes a difference.
Elias, in regulated sectors, which conflicts or reputational risks are most sensitive in screening? Advisory roles, prior consulting, industry ties, public positions. And one question to you in particularly, when it is English enough or German is requested, and is it different in Switzerland?
Elias, sein Mikrofon ist noch aus.
Yeah, sorry. I would say, thank you, Monica. I would say German in board positions. English is a must. It's common in Germany and Switzerland. But in terms of your questions, in regulated sectors, I would say the most sensitive risk when screening candidates are usually about independence and credibility. You know? First, any past consulting or advisory work that could suggest bias, especially if the person advised companies that later face compliance issues. Compliance is a huge topic in such markets. Second, I would say undisclosed industry ties like financial interests, board links. We talked about it earlier, or informal networks that might create a perception of, let's call it divided loyalties. And third, I would say public positions like speeches, advocacy, or commentary that you do which conflict with regulatory expectations or with organizations' values. So to summarize in a short, anything that questions a candidate independence, judgment, or neutrality becomes a reputational risk in those highly regulated environments.
Mary, what's your advice to translate an executive CV into a board-ready narrative for international searches?
I think it is a very different resume CV that from an executive to a board. And I think initially it's putting, yes, some of that executive experience I would put that second on the CV, but at the top of that, putting very clearly what is the transfer, the value that you can add to the board? What are the specific skills and experience that we've already talked about? What are those things that make you board ready, that make you someone that would add value to that board? And then if there's any experience that you've had on maybe executive committees or board that are pseudo boards, put that on as well, so that it shows that you've had board exposure, even although you're an executive, and it shows that you can do. But it comes down to, are you understanding the strategic issues of that organization, and have you therefore got experience that they go, yeah, we want to have someone with that experience, that credibility, that ability to challenge on the board with us.
Hey, Martin, what does an excellent board CV looks like in Germany? What do you want to see first?
Well, in Germany, it comes, first of all, a photo. Professional
We can't hear you.
We cannot hear you.
No, nothing. Hello?
Now you're
Now?
back.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Now you're back.
Okay. So I think it was maybe a connection problem, or maybe, shall I repeat what I said?
Well, you said summarize maybe a couple of
Yeah, I think a photo would be good. I think you had this one, right? And it should be concise, well structured, outcome oriented, and yeah, of course, you would like to name the committees, right? And I think that's it.
So Elias, tell us one concrete thing a Spanish executive could do to be in the radar of German boards in 2026.
I would say you have a great example with the current CEO of Merck, who becomes the CEO of Sanofi soon, Belén Garijo, and I think you could ask her. She's a great example of how to fill a boardroom by being present in terms of stakeholder management towards all angles, like investors, politics, and the own team. Secondly, show that you can transform and navigate in such times like we have today, and not only talk, but take actions. And Spanish people are normally good in that.
So Arne, in medium-sized companies, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I would echoing Elias, and I would probably say that show your exposure in working in and taking decisions in uncertain times under pressure, and that you have a fast mind, so you're able to take quick decisions, and have the ability to convince people also from the cultural perspective. So this is also to align your profile to that sometimes complicated German governance system. So I think, but again, I think the transformation capabilities and the agility in your mind and the willingness of taking decisions and being strong with this would be most important for me.
Mary, what would you say?
I would just say, don't forget about technology. It's such a big issue at the moment. Not a lot, it's a challenge that every organization is facing. And so therefore it's be able to talk about it and learn as much as possible about AI. You don't, as I say, need to be an expert, but you need to understand what is the impact on the organization. So be ready to have those discussions as well as the discussions about the strategic priorities of the organization and the market they're in.
Mm-hmm. Martin, would you add something else to that?
No, but I agree definitely, because technology and AI is changing almost everything, business models, industries. But I think it's also getting a tool and necessary tool for boards to supervise. That's also something new, and it's needed, obviously. Yeah.
Do you want to add something else? Do you want to say something to our audience? Any of you?
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Please.
And Germany is still strong, so it's not going away from the globe. So don't have the trust and the positivity to take us serious in the future as well. So.
And even although we live in challenging times, I think it makes it a fascinating time to be on a board and trying to navigate those changes and challenges and adapting as things are changing by the day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. If you want to add something, this is your last chance, and maybe we can take one or two questions, not more, because otherwise we will not finish the program. Marta Spell. Marta, you had a question.
Marisa, maybe? I have a question, but my name is Marisa.
Ah, Marisa, sorry.
Okay.
I don't see without the glasses, as you see. Marisa.
The question is for you. I had some exposure in Germany, and I've never seen that quick decisions work there. It's companies where you need to get agreement of everything, and I had some troubles being quick. I mean, I'm not in the board level, but a little bit executive or doing consulting work. So I have not experienced that with German companies. So I was surprised that you said it. If you can comment on that.
So the question was for me?
Yes.
For Anna?
Yes,
okay.
for you.
Yeah, of course, the German culture is not known for being the fastest moving system in the world. So I fully agree. But again, it really depends on the size of the companies. And again, I'm really with a lot of Mittelstands companies here, and I'm just on a roadshow meeting a lot of decision makers for a week, 15 appointments, and all of them are more or less medium-sized companies between 1 and, I don't know, 10 billion euro revenue, something like that. And what I see there is that the reason for not being fast in decision is not because they don't want to take fast decisions. It's because of the regulatories, of the laws, of the whole legal environment that is very complicated here in Germany with regards to anything you can imagine. So I would really make a differentiation between decision makers and the overall environment. So therefore, I still would say the companies I know, the family-owned companies I know, everyone is fast, and this was also part of their success. So we can go to a lot of names that we have here, especially in southern Germany. But of course, when you are a company like Mercedes-Benz or BMW or whatever, so you're that large and you have so much legal issues, you have the co-determination with all these influence of labor and so on. So it makes it really tough to be fast, but it's not a gap in the mindset or missing capabilities.
That's why you need fast decision makers at the board.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. It has been very interesting to know, to listen to you. And well, I think we should continue with the next panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that working? Yes, it is. Okay, good evening, everyone. So, sorry, let me my glasses on first. So we just heard the market perspective was a very interesting one, and indeed, although probably some data we heard might not be so encouraging. We are not there yet. However, we also heard there is a business case for diversity and gender equality in executive teams and on board. And this is probably based on the fact that, you know, most companies globally face unprecedented challenges. So for that, they need some set of skills like complex problem solving. And for that, of course, to create this innovation and this cognitive diversity, you need to bring in different players on board, including female talent. So there must be a lot of competition on the global market for talent to tackle these unprecedented challenges and for companies to position themselves for the future. So there is hope, and specifically for that, we're very lucky to have our speakers with us today to share, their success stories and what is really the recipe, the right cocktail, the set of skills to succeed on the board, international boards, as well as specifically in Germany. So let me briefly introduce our speakers today. So we have Verena Batkus, partner at Agir Energy and former executive board member and CFO of Pillar Group. Welcome, Verena. So we have Kirsten Rapke, managing partner at Red Swan Partners, former CEO at TÜV Rheinland, Spain, and former executive VP Europe TÜV Rheinland, and also independent board member in several international companies. Welcome. We have Anne with us, Senior Director Sales, Western and Southern Europe of Lufthansa Group. And last but not least, joining us remotely, we have Monika Schulte, Corporate Strategy Director in a consultancy firm, Trend One, also former global and local CMO of Zurich Insurance and board member in multiple companies. Welcome, Monika. So in order to keep it really sharp, I will ask you to maybe provide short 1 minute, 1.5 minutes answers to the questions. Some of the issues have already been discussed, but I think the beauty is to really hear the answers from a different perspective, from an insider perspective, firsthand. You female leaders who actually succeeded on international boards. So a question to all of you would be, in one sentence, what has become more critical in specifically Germany for international board candidates over the last 12 months? Maybe we'll start with Ina.
Yeah, thank you. I have to start with 2 disclaimers. One is that I was on a Dutch board, so not German. And the second is that it was not a stock exchange listed company, but one of these family owned. So a bit different dynamics. And I think what is dramatically changing right now is definitely artificial intelligence. So one needs to be really up to speed and spend your free time with the computer to see everything that's going on, because otherwise you will not understand the changes that the organization will go through. And I think issues like diversity and ESG are losing protagonism, but numbers matter a lot. And whatever you hear on the news, if it's taxes or if it's energy prices going up, you have to have a view on how this will impact on your future earnings, on the development of the company. So not so much historic accounting, but you need to be able to project information you get into numbers. So numbers and artificial intelligence are my 2.
Technology again.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. I would like to try to give it a little bit different twist, because we have heard so much also earlier. And if I would sum it up, it's agility and adapt yourself, because you said it perfectly. If you had asked the same question 2 years ago, maybe everybody of us would have said ESG. And now we are saying AI. And tomorrow we are saying geopolitics. So exactly what you mentioned at the end. So to be agile by yourself, to be cultural adaptable, to be able to think in scenarios. So what is changing in the world, in the different angles which are affecting my company, and what does it mean in the projection? So I don't talk about strategy planning, but really meaning scenarios, but be able yourself to adapt to this. whatever is coming.
Okay, so adapt and anticipate. Interesting. Thank you. And your perspective?
It's fascinating conversation, and I think just to shortly mention, I'm an American working for a German company based here in Spain. So I have a very diverse perspective, and I just want to say, don't give up on the U.S. On the DEI topic. We're there. The companies are there. So, but yeah, I mean, it's funny that we didn't coordinate, but for Lufthansa, it's really digitalization. ESG is very important to us. And it's also Vielfalt. So this diverse perspective is what we're looking for within our boards.
Excellent, thank you. So, okay, let's make it even more practical and unpack what does it mean to be fit for the board in terms of culture, governance, and stakeholders' expectations. So maybe, Kirsten, from your experience, what are the most practical differences between German and Spanish board dynamics? Because you have the both perspectives. I mean,
Yes.
everything like depth of evidence,
Yeah.
challenge culture, the chair's role.
Yeah, I was really smiling beforehand with Miriam because when I moved to Spain 14 years ago, I was in a Junta Directiva. And it was exactly how you described it. So imagine I'm German, coming with a very international mindset because I worked most of the time very globally in different continents, coming to Spain, being in a Junta Directiva, and we talked 2 hours for whatever, but the most important part is, let's go for lunch. So my German mindset was like, wait, where are the documents? Where's the preparation? Where's the business case? Where are the reports? Where are the KPIs? Because from our cultural differences, we are working very much like this. So if I don't have all the evidence, if I don't have all of this, I'm like, how do I decide? And it changed in the last 14 years, definitely. But still, I would say in Germany, also we mentioned it before, we have a dualistic system. We have a very strong governance. We have the German code of conduct. We have so many of these rules. And in the boards itself, from my understanding, there is no open discussion because everything is done beforehand. On one side, and also I think you mentioned it, we have employees representative, we have stakeholder representatives, we have a formal setup in the board meetings. So everything else is done beforehand. There are the open discussions, there are the conversations, there is all of this. And I think you said it before, the Spanish are good in I think it was Elias who said like the Spanish are good in all of this relationship building. So this is outside of the board. And this is, from my understanding, completely different in the Spanish setup. And this makes it such a challenge to adapt really in this different setup.
Right, thanks for that. I mean, I lived myself also between Germany and Spain for many years, and I do realize actually that there are also differences, cultural differences in terms of how you build trust. And obviously, a board position is a role based on trust and also relationships with your stakeholders, right?
One comment
Yeah.
there. If anybody is interested, there is a great book from Aaron Meyer.
Oh yeah, culture map.
Exactly. It's a culture map. And it's not the stereotype. How do you react or how is your culture stereotype? So she's breaking it down in many, many different categories. And trust building is actually one of them. And if you read this, you understand much better how to act in all of these cultural differences. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will also advocate that intercultural competence is really part of the skills to be expected from a board candidate. So question to Verena, have you been able to observe how trust and personal relationships are built in Germany versus Spain? Like what are the differences, if any? We heard already, you built relationships with Spain, going out for lunch, among other things. How different is it in Germany?
It's 23 years that I have not worked for a German company, and so I'm kind of outdated. But in Spain, you definitely have this, as they call it, high context society. So you have to first ask how many kids do you have, to which school do they go, and do you like football, and do you like jamón? And so there is a lot of personal link that you first have to create before you have trust. And dealing with Germans, this is a lot more fact-driven. Yeah. So facts do matter, and the personal issue is not so predominant.
Thanks for that.
Joanna, Joanna, do you want to include me in the discussion as well, or?
Absolutely. I've got a
Good.
question for you coming. Just before that, yeah, actually, I have a question for you coming. So let's let's really connect what we just talked about, the culture, to the language the boards speak. So there are always some keywords like value creation, risk management, compliance, decision quality. So Monica, based on your experience, also as a former global CMO and as a member of supervisory boards, what are the three, let's say, most important business priorities that German boards will focus on this year, 2026? And also, how can international candidates communicate in a way that shows that they truly understand those priorities?
Maybe adding as well. I mean, I'm on German boards, but I'm also part of a Croatian board. And in this Croatian board, we have a Swedish member, we have a German member, we have a French member, and Croatians, of course, as well. So I think the state of the art also for German boards would be diverse, have different perspectives, also from different markets, which is, of course, more difficult compared to the situation if you only have Germans. But the good news is that you get different perspectives on board. And then, of course, and I get back to Elia's comment earlier, I think you have to define the basics that are needed in order to be a board member. Yeah, define them, be clear that you can do that. But then also say, what are the different perspectives of the board members so that they can contribute to the board? And there might be somebody who is very good in AI. There might be somebody who's very good in innovation. There might be somebody who's good in ESG perspectives. You need a basic knowledge. Yes, I agree. But it's also good that you're expert in a certain field. And I also agree that you cannot have it at one point, define it, and then don't change. I think this agility adaptation is a very good point as well. If you look at my position, I mean, in the beginning, I positioned myself as a strategist and then also strategy interaction. So making sure that you don't only have a strategy paper, but make sure it is getting into action. I then added also my ESG capabilities, and then today also AI and what can we do with new technology. And that comes to my last point now. I think even as a board member or supervisory board member, there is a lifelong learning curve. So I think that you have to make sure that you go into a learning every year, and times are changing more and more quickly. So make sure that you're top-notch informed when it comes to certain things that are important, so that you are able to challenge your fellow members, but also then board members.
All right. So it's really like a cocktail between the general knowledge, technology, adaptability, and continuous improvement and learning, right?
Yes.
Thanks for that. Okay, let's move to the energy sector, one of the relevant sectors nowadays. So when, Verena, when we talk in energy transition agenda, so what do boards expect from senior leaders and board members in terms of government's decision-making, risk management, all talking about energy transition, trade-offs between the long-term benefits and short-term goals? And if you have been able to observe it, where do international profiles typically fall short?
I will start with the second question because it's easier. Sure. In the end, energy markets do have a lot of country-specific items, and that's difficult to be expert in all countries. So international leaders usually are good in their home market, and that's it, but not everywhere. And I think the energy sector as such is marked by the trilemma of sustainability, security, and affordability. And so I think a good leader needs to be able to find the right balance between this, because if all energy is green, but you only have it when the sun shines because then your solar produces, or if your supply is 100% secure, but at a price that private households or industrial customers cannot pay, then you are falling short. And so I think leadership in the energy sector is just a challenge to find the right balance between these three items.
So really leveraging skills between affordability, safety, and other aspects. Right. Thanks for that. So just for the benefit of time, we'll probably have to skip some interesting parts of the discussion, but still, I have a question for Monica. If you had to choose, what is really a most direct door opener to the board? Is it the board committee's readiness? Is it any other hard board skills? What is it if you had to choose one aspect that is really an immediate door opener?
One is a bit tricky. So I would say education. So be clear about what you have to know as a board member. Second one is be clear about your positioning. So what are you good at in comparison to others? What can you contribute? And then 3 is, of course, also networking. Because in the end, most of the time you get the good board memberships through networks.
All right, thanks for that. Any comments on that, Kirsten? Do you have any?
Yeah, I think they are non-negotiable parts. So you really have to know the regulations and all of this. And we mentioned this before. So the second part is really, from my understanding, not what can the company does for me, but more is what can I contribute? How can I contribute? And this is really a process. It's not just like applying or looking or networking in the wild or in the blue, but really to think where I'm good at. And the third point I would like to mention is it's about knowledge, about basic knowledge or knowledge, but it's also about how do I contribute by asking the right questions. Because as a supervisory board, you don't give the answers. And I think in the transition from an executive role to a supervisory board, we have to make this change. Yeah, because as an executive, you decide, you do, you are the maker. Good leader, of course, but in a supervisory role, you have to change this. And this is a transition. And then if you are able to manage this, you contribute, and this is not to under-evaluate.
Thanks for that. Okay, maybe we can move to another subject that is probably very relevant for candidates to international boards. We talked with our headhunters community about what a perfect CV should look like, but what is it really from your perspective, apart from the perfect CV, maybe the personal branding, positioning, networking? How do you approach it in a way that feels natural and is really meaningful? Maybe we start with Anne. You like from the cross-culture perspective, right?
For me, obviously I'm looking at what Lufthansa is looking for, and we're going through a cultural change ourselves, a cultural journey, we call it, and changing from the inside. And for me, it's very exciting to see how quickly changes can be made culturally if you put your effort behind it. So if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have a completely different answer for you. But now we're really looking for people that challenge the status quo, that bring in diversity of thought. And working for such a large company, we are required to make very public all of let's say, KPIs of our supervisory board members, and where do they check the box so anybody can see online, what is someone's competence? And for me, that's super interesting if your ambition is to go into a board, to understand the organization you're coming into and see where you can bring in something different, I would say.
Thanks for that. Monica, do you have could you provide your perspective on that? a strategy for networking, personal branding, perfect CV.
Anna said earlier, and I think you mentioned as well, that the cultural fit is very important. And I think that's a very valid point. On the other hand, cultural fit cannot be as such that everybody is nice and holds hands and we go for lunch and for dinner. I think we also have to create an environment where challenging questions are going to be asked. You know? And you have to invite candidates who are able to ask difficult questions, especially because the future path today is not linear anymore, but there are multiple ways we can go. So I think the culture has to be as such that, yes, you fit together and you have a good collaboration, but on the other hand, you should invite people as well to say, ask difficult questions, because that's the role of supervisory board members.
Excellent.
Can I directly go for this? I completely agree, Monica. And for me, this is exactly the cultural fit. Because, for instance, if you are in this environment where someone formally wants your questioning topics, but below the line, they don't want it because the culture is a different one, then it's not a fit. So for me, it's a very strong, it's really wanted and not just a tick mark, as we said before. And this drives it. And you have to ask yourself, do I fit into this? Yeah, for instance, I would not fit into an environment or a culture where you have to just not ask the open questions. So challenging, sounding is for me the beauty of it, because we all learn from this, we all develop. I want to be challenged. That criticism is something different, is personal criticism, but to be challenged, to grow better together, this is for me an outstanding situation.
Yeah, I fully agree.
All right. However, you know, if there might be different culture profiles within the board, and they might mark this board dynamics. How do you deal with that? Or maybe you have a real life case to share where you have been able to, you know, navigate different cultural profiles within the board and still reach a consensus with this checks and balances exercise, be on the same line, on the same page, but still challenge each other. Any thoughts on that, or maybe examples of how to deal? Any of you?
I can say, don't be afraid to change the board. So what we did at Lufthansa was we revisited our structure. We made our executive board smaller. We enlarged our supervisory board, and we changed people. And it was quite radical for our organization. But 2 years later, I can say it was the right decision, and it's really working well. So that would be my example.
Yeah. Thanks for that. All right.
I mean,
I don't,
one addition, I think what is very important as well is that you go into a self-reflection once a year, you know? And say what worked well, what didn't work well, and then also take into consideration that there are different nationalities. Because there are people like the Swedes, for example. There are people like the Swedes, for example, they're a bit more quiet and they don't say their opinion right away. This is the board member I know. There are other people who are very vocal and put everything on the table directly. And I think the chair of the committee has to make sure that everybody is able to say something, and that you go into this, what went well, what didn't go well, and then you get some stuff on the table which helps you to improve.
All right. So it requires some coaching skills as well from the board members and specifically the chair of the board. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it's really worth noticing. Okay, I'm not really aware of the time, but I'm sure there will be a lot of questions from the audience, so we'll try to wrap it up. Just with a quick round, I would like to hear from all of you one myth about entering German boards and that you would like to debunk. Verena. A myth.
A myth?
Yes.
You have to speak German.
It's a myth. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine. All right. And you...
I said, that you have to fit into a certain mold. That's a myth, I think.
Right. The most common mistake you see in international board positioning?
I think maybe and you might correct me, but overemphasis on your work experience and not the broader picture, I would say.
Monica, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I think that's exactly what we have to look at, the broader picture. Yeah, you have to shift, and we said it earlier, from operational tasks to more strategic and then forward-looking things. And that I would emphasize as well. Yeah.
Kirsten and Verena, anything from you?
I completely agree. For instance, when you have the classical CV and you put it full of your operational experience, and the bigger the P&L, the better, is not exactly what is needed. There, you have to have the other side as well.
Mm-hmm. So a mix between hard and soft skills.
Yeah, and also to show that you have been maybe in boards or in committees, because it's a different mindset. So the knowledge is similar, but you act differently. And it's really a shift, and it's not an easy one always.
It's a professional maturity, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
And capacity to listen and to make the extract of what everybody is saying. Because in the end, I mean, you have to ask the right questions and then give recommendations.
Okay, and just one sentence. The one skill that will differentiate candidates most in 2026. Most, just one skill. And
technology.
Technology. We heard technology a lot today.
Digitalization.
Digitalization.
And Vielfalt.
And maybe one tip in the end, if you start new as a board member, yeah, get yourself a mentor or somebody on the board that gives you tips and helps you. And if you're a bit unsure in the beginning, you can take him or her as a sounding board. Always helps.
Yeah, they say that's the quickest way to get where you want to get, to model someone who's already been there. Yeah, that's a great tip.
And I think at least a midterm perspective. Don't get lost with all the short-term changes, but always look at the mid to long term. You will do better.
Okay. All right. And we will just wrap it up with one question to all of you. And we will make it really concrete and actionable. Ready Spanish executives should take in the next 90 days to be on the right radar for German boards in 2026. One concrete action. Time frame the next 90 days.
Oh,
yeah, a tricky one, yeah.
To be honest, I didn't get the question completely because you were mute in the beginning.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is the action?
Yep.
No, still not. Yes. Do you hear me now? Oh. Well, it's a very drastic way to sort of. All right. Do you hear us, Monica, now?
No, yes.
Okay, so let me repeat it. One concrete action a board-ready Spanish executive should take in the next 90 days to be on the right radar for German boards in 2026. One concrete action for board-ready Spanish executives within the next 90 days.
Collect the business cards of the headhunters present in this event.
All right.
I like this one. No, I like this one, but it's good. I mean, besides the networking, understand the German regulations and governance to not trap directly into in a problem by not having this mindset. It's unfortunately it's a boring one. I'm so sorry, yeah. But I think if you do not understand this, you will have no chance.
So don't underestimate compliance.
Yeah. Compliance, regulation, codes, and all of it.
Right. Okay.
Decide which board you want to be on and go for it.
Thank you.
And it's perfect. So decide which board and then engage with the company, learn about them, and sell yourself.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we'll make time for some questions, but this was actually the perfect practical translation of the market needs based on your success stories. So thank you so much for generously sharing them. And now we open the questions to the audience.
I just wanted to say that
that we have offered for the people who is in the foundation in our club's member who have eventually do the training with us. That's an event for them mostly. And then we have offered them actually to connect them with headhunters and the German needs to like environmental regulations. And I mean the possibility that they change this mindset. And we have a number of persons here personally and also online. And we have a next edition coming in on the 9th of April, and this is also for them. But I leave it for your questions.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to ask, what recommendations would you make for this new generation of women leaders in order to succeed and make their way up to the board? And what skills would you think that these women should acquire in order to succeed, especially in male-dominated fields and male-dominated companies? Thank you.
I might answer, and I think you have a lot of advantages already because it's a different generation. And if you maybe just be yourself and don't complicate too much and think in these differences, and they are the men's and they are the older ones and they are the Germans, but they are very German. Besides of this, I think sometimes we overcomplicate things, honestly speaking. Just be yourself and just go for it. Just take it.
And be a good professional.
I have a question as well. Again, thank you, ladies. Thinking as an executive and, for example, being at a leadership team, I mean, dynamics at a leadership team level, in a way, could be kind of similar in the sense of the dynamics to the dynamics of a board, because some of you were mentioning being in committees or patronages or things like that. But do you think that being part of a leadership team and being part of the discussions and the decisions and the driving, even though the role of the board and the executives is different, do you think that could help in positioning one for a board? Thank you.
We take this question.
I take this. Definitely, yes, because good leadership skills are, for instance, we heard before, listen. Yeah, listen, embrace, be empathetic, understand, give direction, coach. All of these are, for me, good leadership skills. Of course, you have to also be decisive and all the more hard facts. And I think definitely they help you to navigate because you can read the room. Yeah? So I think the challenge sometimes is you're coming with this idea of the board or the supervisory board, and then you are there and you're like, it's not exactly how I envisaged. So from my understanding, and it helped me, it helped me because I was a leader and a manager for many years before I entered this, and it helped me understand better to navigate in between the formalities.
Just 3 little comments. One comment is language, I agree, is really very important in Germany, but I think it's also cultural literacy. It's also understanding German culture, and that's even more than the language. Second point, I think, okay, there are headhunters, of course, you can speak with them, but things, and I think local network is very important. So if you're interested in Germany, go to Germany. So local networking. And the third comment is, I think there's a huge opportunity for young women and for young people in general in Germany, because the boomers, they're going to retire. This is happening, and there's a demographic change in Germany, and so they need you.
Any other question? We still have an opportunity. No? If not, that with this, I don't know, Miriam, if there is anything on the agenda, or we just wrap it up. Okay, so I thank everyone on site as well as online for joining us today. And yes, we'll continue networking. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the
Thank
session.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you very much to all of you. Bye.